Hello, Will here with Recuperate at recuperate.com. Log on to the blog and check it out. Um, I talk about my experiences with recovery from schizophrenia and addiction. And in this video, I'm going to talk about my recovery story. Um, I know there's a lot out there on recovery from schizophrenia. I hope my story is unique and inspiring. And just so you know, I'm doing well now. I'm working. I've been working for the past 10 years. 39 years old right now. Um, but I guess I can start the story off when I was a child. Um, I was a very emotional child. I cried at the drop of a hat over every little thing that bothered me. And kind of had an abusive father, kind of absent. Um, when I was a child, my mother was kind of a secular Jewish, and I remember one time when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, probably about 4 years old, I asked my mom who made everything, and she said God. And that kind of, I knew the world had to have a creator, which is why I asked my mom that question. And when she said God made everything, it kind of helped me to realize that I was in a world and I had a place in it. But we started, my mom and dad wanted to send us through religious education in the synagogues, but they charged way too much money. Like, even if my parents had sacrificed everything they had, it still wouldn't have been enough, because my parents were, at the time, very poor, and my mom found this church down the street, and went in there by herself one day and asked how much it cost to go there, and they said it was free. So my dad said, well, yeah, they don't charge you for going there, but they take up an offering and they probably want you to give 10% of your money. But my mom still insisted on going, so we started going. And that was when I learned about Jesus. And it was kind of a bad experience at that church. It was really, now that I look back on it, I think the things they said were kind of dumb. And right now I'm Catholic, and I like that much better. But we went church hopping for a long time, and the people there were just really mean to me, and that kind of had an effect on my symptoms that would develop later on in life. But we lived in West Hills, California, which is in the San Fernando Valley, which is under the jurisdiction of Los Angeles. And when I was in junior high, we moved to Palmdale, California, which is like a suburb of the suburbs. It's kind of out there, but still in Los Angeles County. And I was really depressed those first couple of years. And I had a lot of suicidal thoughts. And I told my parents about it, and they were kind of freaked out by it, but they pretty much didn't know what to say. So what they said was, go ahead and do it. You wouldn't be hurting anybody but yourself. And they probably said that not thinking I would actually go through with it, but I ended up taking half a bottle of aspirin, and they were very concerned, but they didn't take me to a psychiatrist or anything like that. They had me talk to the school counselor, and nothing really else came of that. I got really sick from taking the aspirin, but I got better from it after a day. But junior high was very hard. I had trouble getting along with the kids, and um, but once I got into high school, things changed. The kids were a lot more mature, and I wasn't depressed anymore. I was more devoted to school. I got really good grades. I made the honor roll at least once a year. And I had a lot of friends in high school. I joined the band, and I wasn't depressed. I was actually very active and almost hyperactive. I lived off of less sleep than normal. I would stay up late doing homework and still able to get up for zero period in the morning. And I made it through high school. Towards the last semester of high school, though, I got in a big fight with my dad, and I ended up moving out. I moved in with my friend who lived in Pear Blossom, and finished up high school. I worked at McDonald's, and I worked at McDonald's for a total of 2 years in California. Then I decided when I was 19 to go to refrigeration school in Phoenix, Arizona. So I moved to Phoenix, and I worked at McDonald's there. Here right now, I'm in Phoenix now. But I worked at McDonald's in Phoenix, and I went to refrigeration school. I ended up having 2 jobs and going to school: a full-time job, a part-time job, and I went to school full-time. So I was really probably kind of manic. Maybe I was just working hard, as young people usually do. But I finished refrigeration school, quit my job at McDonald's, and went to work for a property management company as a building engineer, which is a facilities maintenance technician. And did that for about 6 months, and I just all of a sudden decided after my dad died to move back to California to be with my mom. And that was kind of well, I don't know if that was a mistake. I don't know. That's what I did. And it took me a couple of months to find a job, I was living in Lancaster, California at the time, and it was actually called Quartz Hill, with my mom. And I found this job in La Habra, which was like a 2-hour drive away, but they had jobs all over Southern California, so I was doing a lot of driving, staying in hotels, doing all these installations for air conditioning. But then I had a lot of suicidal thoughts again, and just by the way, my dad had schizophrenia, and he ended up dying in a mental hospital, and my mom didn't want me to end up that way. So she had me see a psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, because I had a lot of depression and a lot of mania. I didn't see myself as being psychotic, but I didn't really know what psychosis was at the time. So I quit my job and applied for disability, and went on general relief as to have some income while I waited for my disability to come through. And of course I was denied for disability, and I appealed it, having symptoms, got really depressed. So my depression was probably about a 9. I mean, I was soiling myself in my bed, and I had blankets over the windows, and I wasn't crying all the time. I think I was beyond that. I wasn't even eating, but I had blown up to like 300 pounds from all the meds I was on from seeing a psychiatrist. And I saw various psychiatrists. I went to the county mental health department after seeing a private psychiatrist. I started seeing a private psychiatrist at first because that's all I knew there was, and I couldn't afford to see him anymore because I didn't have insurance and I didn't have money to pay him. So I ended up going to the county mental health department, which didn't charge me anything. But I had that depressive episode, and so I went to the hospital, and stayed there for 2 weeks. And they took me off all my meds and put me on, I mean, I couldn't even tell you what I was on. I was starting to have hallucinations, so they put me on loxapine. I was having depression, so they had me on Prozac and lithium, but I was taking other things too, like Klonopin, and I don't even remember. I know I was taking like 17 or 18 pills a day. So I went to the hospital. They washed me out of all my meds and put me on, I think it was Zyprexa, lithium, and Remeron. But I still had the diagnosis of bipolar disorder. But I felt a lot better after going to the hospital, and about a month after getting out of the hospital, I got approved for disability, both state disability and federal disability. So I was very happy about that. Things were looking up. But I spent most of my time partying and just kind of fooling around on my computer. But I decided to go to school for computer graphics and tried to express myself through art. I wasn't really very good at drawing, but I was really good with photography and digital photographic imaging. So for about 2 years, I studied computer graphics and took some other classes at the college. And I went to this bipolar support group, which had people with other illnesses in it as well. People with schizoaffective disorder, people with schizophrenia, people who had depression, and people who had bipolar disorder. And I had this friend who was, I'd been wanting to become Catholic for some time. And I had this friend who was going to RCIA, and so I asked her how it was, and she said, good. I tried RCIA a few times, never really got into it, but I went to an inquiry course with the deacon and asked a lot of questions and then decided to go through with it. And so I was going to college. I had moved out of my mom's place and in with my friend. We were roommates, and I was going to Weight Watchers to try to lose some of that 300 pounds. So for the next year, I was going to college, finishing up my certificate in computer graphics, going to RCIA, and losing weight on Weight Watchers, and for the whole time I was pretty much asymptomatic. I did really well on the Zyprexa. I also took lithium, and I think that was it. Just Zyprexa and lithium. Oh, and Topamax. So the Topamax curbed my appetite, which is why I was able to lose weight on the Zyprexa. And I lost about 90 pounds, completed most of my courses in school. I was even doing some side work for some people, doing their, touching up photographs for them. And I was doing some side work for air conditioning as well. And I finished RCIA, I got initiated into the church. And I was ready to go back to work and find an actual job. And then the doctor at the county mental health department said, well, you're not schizophrenic, and you're stable, you're bipolar. The psychosis you have most likely comes from your mood instability, so I'm going to take you off of the Zyprexa because as long as you stay on the lithium and the Topamax, as long as your mood stays stable, you shouldn't have psychosis. So he took me off of the Zyprexa, and then I started getting sick again. I got all these thoughts about how computer graphics, what I was doing was bad. It made people feel bad about themselves, touching up those photographs and making those people look all perfect and everything. So my friend moved out of the apartment, my brother moved in, and then we were having some problems. So I moved out and moved back in with my mom and decided I wanted to go into the medical field. So I went to school to be a CNA. But in the midst of that course, I had a psychotic relapse. And I told my mom, I'm not feeling well, something bad going to happen. Just put me in a board and care facility. So she found a board and care facility near where she lived, which was really awful. I mean, it was just an awful existence, but I got even sicker. And they ended up sending me to the hospital, and I was really sick. I was hearing voices. I was having hallucinations. I saw bugs everywhere. And I was hearing angels and demons and seeing angels and Mary and Jesus, and I was having delusions about my being a prophet, and I was even keeping a journal at the time. I lost the journal when I was moving around a lot. I wish I still had it. I'd read you some of it, but I didn't know shit from Shunol. I was really sick. And one time my mom came to visit me, and it was my birthday, and I spent my 25th birthday in the hospital. And she brought some fried chicken for everybody and stuff like that. And when the visit was over, she went to leave, and I went to leave with her, and they pulled me back saying I couldn't go with her. And I said, but I thought we were going on a picnic. I thought she had come to take me out of the hospital to go on a picnic together. I didn't know why I thought that, but that wasn't the case. So she left, and I stayed, and I had a new doctor at the time. His name was Dr. Arella, and he was not only my outpatient doctor, but he was also my doctor in the hospital. So that was kind of cool. But he put me on risperidone and Haldol because I was really psychotic, and he changed my diagnosis to schizoaffective disorder. He also put me on Wellbutrin, Depakote, and lithium. So I was taking all these meds. When I got out of the hospital, I was taking a Haldol Decanate, which is a monthly injection, and I went back into a board and care home. It was a different one, which was a lot better. And my thoughts of being a prophet went away. The hallucinations went away. And my depression went away. And I socialized with my friends. They let me go out at night to socialize with my friends and come back late. They let me leave early to go to church in the morning. I tried to go to Mass every day and go to confession as often as I could. And I lived in the board and care for about 6 months. I was on the Haldol deck for about 4 months. And then I went off of that. And then I went off of the Wellbutrin. And then I went off the Depakote. So all I was taking was the risperidone and the lithium. And I ended up moving out of my mom's place and moving out of the board and care home and into my mom's place. And then came Risperdal Consta, and I did even better on that. That was in 2004. I got really sick in 2003. 2004, I went on Risperdal Consta. And I took that for a few years and tried to go to school. That didn't work out. Just major in math. That didn't work out. So I just tried looking for a job. I went to Mass every day for 2 years, from 2005 till 2007. I went to Mass every single day. That's something new. That was a huge part of my recovery, just being able to get up in the morning and have something to do, have something to be devoted to. I was involved in ministries, and it took up my time. I didn't just party all the time like I was before. I did hang out with my friends probably once or twice a week at night, but tried to go to bed early, get up early, um, but looked for a job from 2005 to 2007, and I tried to do real estate. I got my real estate license, but that was when the real estate market had kind of maxed out and it was kind of starting to decline, so I couldn't get into that. People were leaving the business. There were so many real estate agents. Real estate agents were a dime a dozen. I tried doing loans. Everybody already had loans. They were underwater in them. They didn't want to refinance. So my friend, I had a friend at the time who was living in Phoenix. I still had her as a friend from when I lived in Phoenix before. And she said, "Come to Phoenix. Everybody's working here." So I did. I stayed with her for a while, and within a week I found a job at a building automation company doing installations. So I was living in the west side of Phoenix, doing all this work in the East Valley, driving all this way. So after about maybe 1 or 2 or 3 months living in the west side of Phoenix, I moved to Chandler, Arizona. And I tried to find a doctor that would take my insurance. I had Medicare, and I didn't have a Medicare Advantage plan or anything like that. I just had straight Medicare. And I could never find a doctor, so I was off my meds for about a year. And this was in 2007, and then in March of 2008 I had an episode, went to the hospital for about 5 days while I got back on the Risperdal Consta. And then I found the REBA, the Regional Behavioral Health Authority, who had clinics for people like me who were seriously mentally ill. So I got an SMI designation and started going to the clinics that were run by the REBA. And I ended up having these people in my life that were just dragging me down and just mooching off of me and causing me a bunch of stress. So I went back into the hospital, and of course I had a really bad doctor too. He didn't really understand me. I went off of the Risperdal Consta because I couldn't go there every 2 weeks and get it, so I went back on risperidone pills, and I went back into the hospital in May of 2008. I wasn't really still stable yet. I was holding down a full-time job and had all this stress in my life. And then I came out after about 4 days, and then in September I went in again. And one of these people in my life stole a bunch of money from me, and I couldn't afford to pay my rent. So in October, I moved out of my apartment and just ditched them and switched clinics. So I got a better doctor in October of 2008, and I rented a room from this nice lady. And I stayed there for about 18 months. But the last time in 2008 when I was in the hospital, they said the risperidone isn't working. We want to give you electroconvulsive therapy. I said, no way, just put me on something else. So I got put on Geodon. So when I got put on the Geodon and taken off the risperidone, I had huge anxiety attacks. If you're not aware of it, risperidone helps with anxiety. And just to kind of backtrack, when I was on the Zyprexa, I had anxiety, and I took clonazepam, and I got addicted to it, and I didn't want to take it anymore, so I weaned myself off of it. I had some anxiety, but I had really bad anxiety when I was on the Geodon in 2008 to 2009. I would have really bad anxiety attacks, and I would tell my doctor about it, and he'd give me Vistaril, which helped. Um, but the Geodon gave me terrible insomnia as well. So I tried taking it during the day, and it made me fall asleep during the day. But if I took it at night, it kept me up at night. And something happened with the funding for the Reba, and they basically said if you don't have Medicaid, then your services are going to be very limited. You won't even get a case manager. So I decided to ditch all that and just get a private doctor, and I had a Medicare Advantage plan at the time. So I searched for doctors that would accept me because most of the doctors didn't take people who were SMI. They kept referring me back to the Reba. And one doctor even said to me, "We don't do schizo here. You're going to have to find somebody who deals with schizo." They actually said that. And I was kind of naive at the time. I didn't know how things worked, and I wondered, why would a psychiatrist not deal with schizo? I would think that would be the main part of their business. What do they do? Dish out lithium and Xanax to yuppies and desperate housewives who have nothing better to do all day than pop pills. So I did find a doctor, and I liked him because he had late hours. I worked until 5 o'clock, and he was open until 6. But then he ended up moving to a different clinic and changed his hours, so I kind of saw him every 3 months, which was fine. I just left for a couple hours every 3 months from work and for a doctor's appointment. And I couldn't afford the Geodon with my insurance, so I got put back on risperidone. And Wellbutrin, I was taking 6 milligrams of risperidone, and what else was I taking? No, I wasn't taking, what was I taking Wellbutrin at the time? No, I wasn't, not at that time. But I had moved out of that old lady's house and into my own apartment, and I had kind of a manic episode, and it made me more religious. It was kind of more like a religious experience, because I'd been away from the church for a while and trying to practice Judaism, but that didn't really work out. And the religious experience was basically Saint Faustina saying the most heinous sin is just a tiny drop in the infinite ocean of God's mercy. And she just kept saying that over and over again. And for about a month, I was real manic. I told my doctor about it. He put me on lithium. And after about 4 weeks of being on lithium, I started to come down. And after 6 weeks of being on lithium, I was normal again. But I was going to church again. And that was nice. And I ended up moving out of my apartment and buying a house. And I had another episode of hearing voices. These were auditory hallucinations. And normally my voices are just delusions of people talking to me. I don't hear them in my ears. I kind of hear them in my head. And they're more like thoughts rather than sounds. But I was hearing sounds that weren't there. And I was also having visions of, I had another religious experience where I experienced a rapture. And the Blessed Mother flew over me saying, "Why do they say I'm immaculate?" And I heard a voice saying, "Because God said." And that made me think, well, God's word is what makes things happen. God doesn't say things because they're true. God says them to make them true. So if God says that I'm righteous, that's how he makes me righteous, by declaring me to be righteous. And that's justified by what Christ did on the cross. So, a lot of these episodes that I have are kind of beneficial. Even when I thought I was a prophet, I was writing things down, and I benefited from that. It was kind of crazy, but a lot of it was actually kind of cool stuff. And I didn't go to the hospital when I was having those episodes. I just went to my doctor, and he changed my meds around, and then things got better. But I had people living in my house and not paying me, not pulling their weight, and my hours were cut at work. Not because they were trying to cut back, but because there was simply nothing for me to do, and I couldn't just sit there and do nothing all day. So I was working pretty much part-time, and I couldn't afford to keep my house, and I was really under a lot of stress, so I went to the hospital again in 2013 for about 4 days, really just for exhaustion. I slept for most of the time. I was just asleep the whole time, and I got rest, and the doctor didn't really make changes to my meds. But I ended up quitting my job and just going for the plunge, and the job was just too stressful. I applied at the place I work now in May of 2013, but they never got back to me until August of 2013. By then I was living with somebody, technically homeless. I was trying to get on my feet. At the time they got back to me, I was working for this temp agency doing facilities maintenance for this company, but that only lasted a couple of weeks. And then I got a job doing technical support for CenturyLink. And then the place I work for now said I could be hired. I did an interview, and they said I could be hired. So I didn't get hired though until the end of October, and by then I was on the streets for a day, and then I found this room to rent by this couple, but that only lasted about 2 weeks, and then they had to move out, and I moved out, and I was out on my ear again. So I moved in with my friend Selena, and all this time I'm taking the risperidone, and what else was I taking? Lithium, I think, at the time. I was mentally unstable, but that's because I was under a lot of stress trying to get my life in order. I had gotten into a car accident, totaled my car. It was a 2011 Nissan Sentra. This was in 2013. And so I ended up buying this 2000 Buick Century from this car dealership who would give me the credit, because I had really bad credit at the time, because I didn't pay a lot of my credit. My credit cards went into default when I was under financial hardship. And I did end up selling my house. And I lived with my friend Selena for a few weeks until I got my own apartment in the same complex she was in, but I really struggled financially. I was making $14 an hour as a peer support specialist. So I ended up breaking the lease on the apartment in 2014, in May of 2014, and I moved around, rented rooms for a little bit. And then I went as I was renting rooms, I was having symptoms. I was hearing voices, auditory hallucinations, command hallucinations. Command hallucination is kind of like, you know, like if you reach down to grab something and somebody says, "Don't touch that," and you pull your hand away. It's kind of feels, that's how it kind of feels. Only they were saying, "He needs help. You need to go out and help him." And so I'd get up out of my bed in the middle of the night to go out to get in my car to go drive aimlessly around the city to find somebody that I'm supposed to be helping. But I would catch myself and say, "Oh, it's just a voice." So what I would do is I'd go out to a hotel, change my setting, and rent a hotel room for the night and watch TV and smoke and maybe try to get some sleep, and then go to work the next day, and then things would be better. But even at work, they noticed I was symptomatic and told me I could go on FMLA, and I said, "No, I can't go on FMLA until I've been here a year." And they said, "Well, if you need to take days off, go ahead and request those and we'll approve them." So I took some days off whenever I needed to. I got quite a bit of time off, or PTO, with the company I'm working for. And I just devoted myself a lot to self-care, and saw my doctor when I needed to, just got in and was able to see her. And I asked about Invega Sustenna, the monthly injection, because I did so well on the Risperdal Consta, which was a bi-weekly injection. I just couldn't come to the clinic every 2 weeks. It was too inconvenient. but it wasn't too inconvenient to go to the clinic once a month. So I got put on the Invega Sustaina, and it did really well on that. I still heard voices and, those delusions I was talking about. And I moved around a lot and ended up in my own apartment, a studio apartment, for a year, and then I decided to rent another room. And I decided to deal with my voices by naming them, because they would really bother me. They didn't really inhibit my functionality, but they really bothered me. So I started naming my voices. One of the voices was Sister Agnes. She was a nun who really encouraged me and helped me to deal with the other voices, unnamed voices, that told me God hated me and that I was a sinner and that I was a pervert or that I was disgusting or whatever. And another voice was Mother Superior, and Mother Superior kind of nitpicked at every little thing I did, and Sister Agnes would encourage me to be patient with Mother Superior. And eventually Mother Superior changed her ways, and now Mother Superior is kind of like a source of wisdom for me. And there's other voices. I wrote a blog post about my voices, so you can go on the blog at rickcooper.com. I'll put a link to it in the player, and you can read about that. But I started naming my voices, and giving them an identity kind of helped me to make them more lucid and to kind of make them less negative, because I could add personality to them. They're not just random voices, but they're actual people. They're imaginary, but they have persona. They have feelings. They have needs. They have wants. And none of my voices want to be bad. So I don't know. Just naming some of them really helped a lot for me to deal with them. It's okay to have symptoms as long as they don't cause you distress and limit your functionality. If you're functional and their voices aren't causing you distress, it's perfectly alright to have voices. Just because you have voices doesn't mean you need to run to your doctor and say, I'm hearing voices. Because some people have fixed delusions. Some people deal with voices and auditory hallucinations their whole life. And it's just something you got to deal with. Medication isn't going to fix it. So that's pretty much where I'm at now. I went off the Invega Sustaina because it was giving me diabetes. I'd been Invega Sustaina. Invega and risperidone are so similar they might as well be the same thing. So I basically took risperidone for about 15 years. Less the 2 years I was on Geodon. The Geodon is also an atypical antipsychotic, so that can cause metabolic stuff too. So right about 2 months ago, I switched to Prolixin Decadent, and it's working out pretty good. So I'm losing weight, and I'm healthier now, and I have voices, but they're good voices. They help me out a lot, and I'm dealing with people. The only thing I'm trying to deal with now is kind of some of the negative symptoms, like a flat affect, and you may notice my affect is kind of flat. I don't smile all that much in these videos. I can smile now, but it's kind of forced. It's not natural. It's, the most I can do is kind of a grimace or some kind of grin. It's been quite a long time since I've laughed my ass off. It's been quite a long time since I've bawled my eyes out. It's been quite a long time since I've really been in love with somebody. Ever since the schizophrenia developed, that's just the way it's been. And I notice that when I take Wellbutrin, though, I am more social. I can laugh, and I'm going to ask my doctor to put me back on that because I just do so much better on it. So I don't know why I went off of it the last time I was taking it. Plus it helps me to quit smoking. So that's where I'm at now. Keep watching my videos and leave a comment. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my blog. And I've been talking for about 40 minutes, so hopefully you got something out of this. And I think some of you are putting your recovery stories on there as well. And I hope that my recovery story inspires you to do the work on yourself. Go to counseling. I went to counseling for a couple years, and it was very helpful. And take your meds and talk to your doctor. Communicate with him or her about your symptoms, and try to develop your own coping strategies and get a job. Don't spend the rest of your life on disability, because you're capable of more than that. Don't spend the rest of your life living off of services. You're capable of more than that. And like right now I'm renting a room, but it's a nice room. It's a nice house I live in. And I have a nice car. I have a 2016 Dodge Dart. And I have a computer. I have internet. I'm able to go out to eat in restaurants. I'm able to eat good food at home. I don't starve. I don't run out of money and don't have any groceries. I don't have food stamps. I don't have Medicaid. I don't have to deal with all of that. I don't have Social Security. I went off Social Security when I started working again 10 years ago. And they literally said, you're not disabled anymore. And so I don't consider my schizophrenia to be a disability. If Social Security is saying I'm not disabled, then I'm not disabled. I can work, and I can support myself, and I can pull my weight in this world and not be an invalid. And so can you. So this is Will with Recupera at recupera.com, and hope to see you on YouTube and on the blog. Thanks for watching. God bless you.